right, hey everybody, how you doing? Hopefully lunch was good to you. Excuse me. All right, so hopefully you know, but I'm speaking on how to contribute to WordPress by testing. There's some new developments in the world of testing. I'm hoping to showcase those so that you can get involved. I think anyone can get involved in testing WordPress. Dive in, contribute, make WordPress better, because if we don't test it, it's not going to get better. But if we do, hopefully it will. Let's see. There we go. Like they said, I'm Evan Mullins. I work at Bluehost, so if you have questions, and if we don't have time afterwards, feel free to come find me at the booth or in the hallway, wherever. Let's just keep going. You're not here to see me. You're here to learn what I'm talking about. My slides are online already if you want to follow along. If you want, snag the QR code or go to evanmullins.com. There should be a big red button up at the top that you can click to go follow along with the slides. Okay, so who can test WordPress? I think it's some people get stuck feeling like you have to be a programmer, you have to really know the ins and outs of WordPress to contribute, but really, you just have to use a computer. I think anyone here watching this, you know WordPress enough to test WordPress for sure. So you can test it. It doesn't take any special skills or certificates. It's something anyone can do, and I really think anyone should get involved. Testing, it helps you understand the product better, or the application better, and you can really contribute that way. And the contributions from people testing WordPress really keep the open source project alive, vibrant, and a fun fact is you also get a badge on your WordPress.org profile. If you've contributed any test work to the project, you get a nice badge. So that's a little bit of recognition you get. And you also get props in the release credits. You can, I think, the About Us page has credits in WordPress, and it usually, I think, says, like, see your name in lights, come contribute. So you can be a part of that as well, if that's what you're after. All right, so we're going to talk about, I've kind of sorted it out into 5 different main categories of how you can test, or the opportunities of testing in WordPress. These first 2, I've got big stars next to them because that is going to be the main focus of the talk. So if we get to the last ones and there's only a few minutes left of the talk, don't worry. Those are a lot lighter. But yeah, testing releases, release cycles, release parties, and then we're going to get into how to test individual tickets, talk about environments and code changes and things like that. And then we'll talk about outreach program. We'll talk about accessibility tests and automated testing. So first up, we're going to talk about testing releases in WordPress. There are a lot of visible places in WordPress when coordinating a new release. We are able to test beta releases, release candidates. So definitely lots of opportunities to get involved there. During each phase of the release cycle, let me just jump ahead, I think. Yeah, so we've kind of got a map of the release cycle from 6.8. That was this spring. Starting in March, we had beta 1, and then we had beta 2. And you'll notice these are all spaced out a week. That's not an accident. It's kind of like a week-long testing sprint. Beta 1 is when the project or the release is feature locked. They're not going to add new things. It's really just time to finish finalizing things, help make sure that different features don't conflict, test bugs. So during that week, anyone's invited to download WordPress locally, run it, or you can install the beta version on your site, run things, test it, make sure you don't have issues, and then please report issues if you find them, of course. And developers work to then fix those issues and come out with a next release the next week. Then there's opportunity, rinse and repeat. You can test again, make sure that the issues that were reported are fixed, and try to find any more issues. That keeps going. We'll have 3 beta releases and then 3 release candidates. And then a dry run, and the general release is generally the next day. And this is a suggested, this is the historic schedule that happened earlier this year, 6.8. 6.9 is coming up this fall. It's the suggested calendar. If for any reason there is a decision that, oh, we need a beta 4, or we need another release candidate release, there is some flexibility in the schedule. They try not to change the final release date, but it has happened. So it's a great opportunity to jump in. It helps really to pay attention to the Make WordPress blog, pay attention to the posts about that new upcoming release, so you know what the features are, what things you can be testing, or join in some of the Slack meetings. You can be a lot more familiar with it. And mentioning Slack meetings takes us right into our next step, which is release party testing. I think this one is a fun way to get involved. It feels a lot more social because it's a meeting, it's a Slack meeting that you can get involved with. If you're not aware, Slack is the preferred chat for WordPress development. If you have a WordPress.org account, you can also go create a Slack account and then participate in all the development discussions, things like that. So let's talk for a minute about release parties. Yeah, so during each release, like we saw earlier, beta 1, beta 2, each time one of those comes out, there will be a release party. There are release deputies assigned for each release cycle. They lead these meetings. We call them parties, though. In the core channel of Slack. Yeah, like I said, Slack is open and free to join. Feel free to jump in and participate. And I've got a couple of screenshots to just kind of show you, walk through what does a release party look like. They will be pre-scheduled. So I think it's make.wordpress/ I think meetings is where all the meetings are the big schedule of all the different meetings that happen across all the different Slack channels. But they will start the meeting, and maybe if you haven't been to one of these before, a good way to dip your toes in, just try to attend one and watch and see how it goes, get familiar with the cadence of a release party meeting. And then if you're impatient, if you want to just jump in, that's fine. You can always feel free to scroll back. The history of all these meetings is going to be in Slack still, so you can scroll back asynchronously, catch up on the last one. But this one is from last summer when WordPress 6.6 came out. They get to a point when it's a call for testing. So the release has been prepped. There's a build file, but it hasn't actually been pushed out for public release yet. There's a time for testing during the release party. Everyone will want to jump in, update their test sites to whatever version that is. And there's a few different ways to do it. We'll go through it. One of the main ways, like it says here, there's two main ways. I guess there's three main ways. You can use WP CLI. You can test with a command, which looks like this. You just WP core update, and you will paste in the link. We'll go back. They give you a link for the zip build. And it does help to do a little prep work before you get into this release meeting so that you have a website that's ready to test. I wouldn't do this on a production site, on a client site. Definitely don't do that. This is still, yeah, if you're during a release cycle, this is still beta or release candidate level stuff. But many hosts will let you have multiple sites on one account. So if you have a site set up, I know like at Bluehost, you can have multiple sites on your account. You can have your main site and then add another site. You could have just a test WordPress site that you get into and update this with. So you shouldn't need to spend any money on testing WordPress, not any money that you don't want to spend at least. And another option is setting up a local site. So you have a site, rather than living on a host server, it would live on your own machine. It wouldn't be live to the world necessarily, but it's good enough for testing purposes. And we'll talk a little bit more about local environments in a bit. But yeah, once you have access to a site, whether it's local or not, you would usually SSH into that site, and you can run your command line WP core update. This isn't how everyone always likes to work. Some people love the command line, other people really don't. So for those people, there's also a plugin. You can install the WordPress beta tester plugin, and that will find these releases that, during the release parties and allow you to update your site just like a normal WordPress update. You can update to a beta release. I don't know if anyone can read this. This is the options page for the beta testing plugin. But there's an option. You would select a bleeding edge option, and then down below you can select the beta or RC or only release candidates. It's up to you, however you want to, or whatever stage this testing is in. And I highlighted the line, but it's a full English sentence of like, here is what your configuration is set up for. It says currently your site is set up to update to version 6.8.3, 6.9 beta 1, or 6.9 RC1, or 6.9, whichever is released first. So whenever I change my settings there, I always try to read that line just to make sure that, 'cause to me, these radio buttons get a little confusing sometimes. So whether you want to use CLI command or you want to use the beta tester plugin, you can join in the next release party. There will be the call for testing, and usually the release deputies will also include instructions, what they're wanting to test specifically in that release, and they'll give you the link to download the zip file. You can, of course, install it manually if you want to do that as well, but I prefer just using the plugin because it makes it much easier. And once they do a call for testing, there's then a whole flood of people that are participating in this release party. They're going to put in their emoji check marks and say, I tested this kind of update, I did it this way, and then this kind of just continues. A few minutes, people can, test. I think it's important to test more than just, oh, the update worked, it didn't crash my browser, my site still looks okay. Like try creating a post, editing a post, do a few different actually things in WordPress. And it's nice to include that you've tested that and it's there. But after about 5 or 10 minutes, they will say, okay, they'll either have found issues with the update process or something and maybe call off the release, or they will continue, and then at the end of the release party meeting, they will then tag the release and it'll be made available to the public. But that's a great way to get involved, and it's important, I think, too, because you'll see the feedback people are giving. They all have different servers, different types. It's important to remember WordPress is an application, but you can run it on many versions of WordPress, many versions of PHP. You can run it on a bunch of different server setups. So there are many, many different configurations, and I think that's a good thing because WordPress is flexible. But it also makes it hard because there's a lot of pieces and parts that could go wrong at some point. You might have a plugin issue or a theme issue or a server setting issue. So the more testing that can be done in more different configurations, the better. And while we are on Slack meetings, I wanted to call out a few more different test-related Slack meetings that you can join. If you're interested in any of this, there is a testing onboarding meeting. It's kind of like an open office hour coffee meeting. Yeah, it's nothing super formal. You can just join the meeting and just have conversations with those that are involved in testing, try to get involved. And there's also the a patch test scrub meeting, which the test leads will have a select number of tickets that they're going to want to test. They'll ask for help. It's a good way to get involved in a place that would have high impact right away if you want to start getting into testing. And that also leads us to the next way we can contribute by testing is testing actual issues in WordPress. During the release cycle, we test the release. It's kind of like a quick spot check to test a bunch of things, test critical functionality of WordPress. But testing issues is a lot more granular process. We test one specific thing, a bug that's been reported, we'll test the fix for the bug, make sure it does what we think it will do. So with every bug, there's opportunities for testers to come in and reproduce the issue. And we can test the patch, test that it fixes the issue that was reported. And also, I think it's important we test that it doesn't cause other issues. We don't want to fix one page but cause issues on a different page. So testing involves more than just checking out and saying, yep, it does what it says it'll do, that's it, I'm done. It can get more involved. And I wanted to mention, once we get into tickets and bugs, there are, just to confuse everybody, there's a couple different places you have to go to look for them. Core WordPress uses Trac. It's a software for bug management. And then Gutenberg, or the block editor, the site editor, the new parts of WordPress typically that have been coming through the Gutenberg project. It's not technically part of core, it's in GitHub, but there are issues on GitHub for Gutenberg related tasks, and anything core is on Trac. And we'll talk more about these in a bit. But I wanted to give you that disclaimer so you're not confused when you say, I thought he was talking about Trac, and now all of a sudden on GitHub. So yeah, Trac is an open source bug tracker tool. It's perfect for WordPress. It is open source, and it's used for bug reports, but also for feature requests. So if you have an idea that you want to be integrated into WordPress, you can add it in Trac. And Trac accounts are shared with WordPress.org accounts. So if you have a .org account, you also have a Trac account. So you can jump in there and participate, join the conversation. And the goal of all these tickets is to make the product, the application of WordPress, better. So keep in mind you want to have a constructive dialogue. It's not for pointing fingers. It's not for causing drama. We don't need any more drama. So here, this is what Trac looks like. It looks like a big table of tickets. And if you can read it, this top one I took a screenshot last week, I think. It's up to 63,853. So there's a long history of Trac tickets. We're approaching 64,000 tickets. That's a lot of work. I think it's been in use for over 21 years now. I think last I looked, there's about 8,100 tickets that are open, so that's pretty good. But we could get that down, I think, and testing helps for sure. So once you go to Trac on make.wordpress.org, you can click, I think it's up in the menu under tickets, and it will take you to this page which shows you the reports. I've circled it down at the bottom. There's a getting started section though. Pay special attention here. For testing, there's a special report made for patches that need testing. The patch is what the developer has done, code changes to fix a bug typically. So all of those need a manual test, someone to come in and verify that, okay, this actually fixes the issue. And those are all found in that report there. Okay, so that was Trac. Now let's talk about GitHub for another second. Like I said, that's for the block editor. Anything block related is going to be on GitHub. It's kind of how you can think about it. Anything core related, or especially anything PHP related, if you know, then that would be on core. This is what GitHub looks like. This is the issue list on this. So compare this to the Trac list. I mean, it looks similar. It's another table. And GitHub has, looks like 24,000 closed tickets, about 5,800 open tickets. So quite a bit of work to do over on Gutenberg's side as well. And not to confuse, but this is the Gutenberg project. And then WordPress has a GitHub mirror as well, which WordPress uses SVN for its version control. But it also uses Git. There's a mirror of the whole project over on GitHub because developers like to use GitHub. And we'll talk more. There are some really cool integrations that this brings us, and it actually makes testing a lot easier on us. So we'll get there, but I wanted to give you a view of that real quick. So while we talk about testing, I want to help everyone think about like the life cycle of a bug. First, the bug needs to be reported by somebody. And then someone needs to come in and reproduce the bug or confirm that it's actually a legitimate issue. It's not user error. It's not it's not a support request. Some people get into Trac thinking they can get support there, but it's really not meant for that. That's what the forums are for. And then step 3, a developer will come in and write some code or change some code to make that bug, to fix the bug, essentially. And after that, we need more help from testers to validate that the patch works. We got a star on a reproduce and on validate, because those are 2 steps that completely rely on a tester. And a tester could be a developer, but it doesn't have to be. Anyone can jump in and do that. Step 5, then that's when the core committers will apply the code changes and merge it into the code base. And then, of course, it gets shipped in a release. So we'll talk through kind of some tickets in their life cycle. First off, you're gonna the reporting. When someone reports a ticket, there are a bunch of bullets that help narrow down what they should be saying. Things like always use the latest version of WordPress, make sure that it still exists, disable any plugins, use a core theme, things like that. Oh, and also look through Trac to see if there's any duplicate or any pre-existing tickets about this issue. We don't need 10 tickets about the same issue. That gets more confusing than helpful. And when you're creating a ticket, it gives you a nice little preview down below of what it looks like. It's important to include steps to reproduce the issue so that other people can consistently reproduce it. If not, then it just ends up looking like user error or something else irrelevant. Also include any other version information, like what operating system you're on or what browser this happens in, what PHP version you're using, what WordPress version, if not the latest, but it should be the latest. And then the tickets have what's called workflow keywords attached to them. That helps manage the flow of the tickets. You can imagine trying to sort through 64,000 tickets would get pretty messy if we didn't have keywords to categorize them. But as a tester, pay attention. There's a few that are really important, like one called needs testing. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it indicates the ticket is looking for testers. It's usually the developer or whoever writes the patch. It's their responsibility to get people to test the patch. So if it hasn't been tested, it's never going to get merged into core. So testing the patches is very important. Has patch is another one. If it has a patch, that means you can test it. Even if someone has already tested it, like I said, there's so many different versions or variations of WordPress. They're all important to test under. And needs screenshot, I think, is a really important one. Screenshots help people reproduce the issue, and it helps developers really understand what the issue is so that they can then fix it. If there's no screenshots, it gets kind of vague, and it's hard to actually tell. So I think screenshots are worth, pictures are worth 1,000 words. Screenshots or even videos are even better. So each ticket's going to have some workflow keywords, and they get sorted through those reports we looked at. And as far as reporting, PSA, if it's a security vulnerability, don't add it to Trac, add it on HackerOne. This alerts the security team, but it gives them time to fix the issue to minimize it being exploited in the wild. Okay, and then there's a reporter feedback keyword as well, which is important. Sometimes a reporter, someone who creates a ticket, will maybe leave out some information or be unclear, so we can ask questions and then add the reporter feedback keyword. So if you do create a ticket, don't disappear. Pay attention, come back when asked, because you'll get emails, I'm pretty sure. So try to stay involved. Reporters can then even become testers and test that the fixes work. I think the reporter is generally the person that best understands what's happening. So here's an example ticket. This is one of my, I think this is I pulled it up, it's part of my own WordPress story. This is my first Trac issue I filed. I was at a WordCamp contributor day, I think, and I was like, this issue has been bugging me. You could end up selecting media in the media library. It would only focus, but it wouldn't select it if you clicked on the edge of the image, which was kind of weird. So we had some discussions on contributor day. We had conversation, people gave feedback, they were able to reproduce the issue. They even were able to look back and find out how long that issue had existed in WordPress. So the issue was reproduced by somebody, someone tested. Adam here was able to find the issue, point it out and say, this is how it should probably be fixed. Here's another issue. I had a coworker who found out the bulk update feature when you're trying to bulk update your plugins. If you have JavaScript disabled in your browser, it kind of just gives you a blank page. I was able to then jump in, reproduce the issue. I added the animation there, the screenshot, a little GIF. I think that helped narrow down some of the issue. This ticket, I think, is still open, so if anyone wants to review it, feel free. Yeah, so then the developer is going to come in, write some code. Code changes, we'll patch it. These are called patches. They're called diffs. They're called pull requests or PR. These are all kind of the same, different terms, meaning a collection of code changes that fixes the issue. So you don't have to be a developer to understand what they're doing, but you can then test the application and see what it's doing. Oh, and I included, you can imagine there's a branch of code, or a line of code, and someone will branch off of it, make some code changes, then there's a discussion, and it gets approved and pulled back in. That's to help visualize the idea of a pull request. The code gets pulled back into the main branch, in case anyone finds the terminology a bit odd. Okay, so we have patches on GitHub, or on Git, it's called a pull request. In SVN, it's a diff or a patch, but it's essentially the same thing. This is a screenshot of the pull requests on WordPress Develop and for Gutenberg. Again, they're different repos, different projects, but they both are important. Let's see. So back to that first issue, I was actually able, during Contributor Day, I was able to find the issue with some help. We figured out a way to fix it. I was able to submit a patch. I'm including this just so you can kind of see an example. This is a little diff down below. The red line is the old code. The green line is the new code, in case you're not familiar with what a diff looks like. But that is what a patch would look like. And then it's up to testers to come in and validate that the code changes actually fixed it. And there are a few steps involved in this. First up is a test environment. Usually it's going to be a local environment. There's lots of different ways you can do it. You can use Docker, you can use WP-ENV, which uses Docker under the hood, which is command line, or you can use something like local, which uses Docker as well, but it's got an interface. WordPress.com has WordPress Studio now, which is another interface-driven way you can have local test sites set up. And then there's Playground. I found out today that Studio actually uses Playground under the hood, while local uses Docker under the hood. So it's a different setup. Helps, I think Studio can run a bit faster for that reason, because it's not using big databases or anything. It's just using Playground. So there is a few steps for people to set up a local test environment. And then we need to apply the code changes either with a diff or a PR or with Playground, and we'll get into Playground in a second. But on the ticket and Trac, you're going to have the attachments listed. This one you can see there are a number of diff files included. So this is multiple developers have come in and suggested code changes. You can test each one of them. They might have implemented the fix in different ways. And then it's up to core committers to review the code and decide which one to merge in. But we look at the diff files here, and then once our local is set up, to apply the code changes to our local code, there are a few commands we can run. Grunt is a task runner built in JavaScript. It allows us to let the computer do some of the dirty work for us. We could obviously go in and find the green line in the diff, or find the red line and then change it manually, but nobody wants to do that. That has lots of room for error. So we can do npm, once we've done an npm install, we can run a grunt command and call patch. We can manually download the diff file, but my preference is you can just put in the ticket number and let the grunt command download the diff file for you. If there's more than one on that ticket, it'll ask you which one you want to apply. Or you can you can just link to the ticket number or to the specific diff file on Trac. This is what it looks like. You would have your terminal, type in npm run gromp patch, whatever the ticket number was, and it will give you a little summary, like it just patched this one file, and then your local is a different version of WordPress. It's not going to be the core WordPress anymore. It's got these code changes in it. And you can manually then go retest that issue and see if it's fixed. And the other option, which I really, really like, if the developer has made, instead of uploading a patch to the ticket or a diff, they can create a pull request on the GitHub mirror, and that'll link back to this ticket, and they cross-link. You can click on the button there and view the PR. So we can use this PR or the patch created on GitHub in the same grunt commands, but I think what is even cooler is we can use Playground. On GitHub, there will be, if you haven't seen Playground yet, it really is WordPress in one click. I haven't taken the time to understand what it does under the hood, but it gives you a WordPress instance entirely in the browser. You don't need to set up anything locally. And this is really cool because in the GitHub pull request, it will give you a link to a Playground instance of WordPress that has already got the code changes applied. So you find there's the GitHub action bot comment on the PR, and at the bottom of that comment, it will give you a test this pull request with WordPress Playground. You click that link, it will take you to a landing page where it auto-pastes in the link you came from into the form, and then submits it, and 10 seconds later, you are in a custom build of WordPress that has those code changes already in it. I was at the test table on contributor day. There was a bunch of us using this. It was going a bit slower. Typically at home, this is loaded up in 5 to 10 seconds. It was taking a bit longer there. If you have good Wi-Fi, this is a great option though. But this is amazing because we didn't have to set up a local environment. We didn't have to manually run any commands to patch anything. We didn't have to download any diffs. It's just built in right there. So I think this is a big barrier removal for anyone that wants to get involved in testing. We have this Playground interaction that we can just click a link, go test this custom code change in a WordPress instance, and we're good to go there already. We don't have to know how to run command line code or install dependencies or anything like that. And another nice feature to call out of Playground is you can change which PHP version you're running. Sometimes a ticket will be specific to a version of PHP. You can change language, other options like that. And then the last part of testing a bug fix is giving feedback. Make sure you tell in the ticket, I tested this, here's what I found, it fixed the issue, and always, add screenshots, add a video of you testing it. You can screen record you on the Playground testing it out, and that's an awesome way that's really helpful. And if you're not sure what to say in Trac on the ticket, there are test report templates you can copy and then fill in the blanks, change the values as you want to. And that's a good way to get involved there. So after that's been validated, the core committers, like I said earlier, will decide this code looks good, it looks solid, it's been tested, let's merge it in, and then it gets shipped in the next release. And it's pretty fun, because then, like I said, on the credits page of WordPress, if you were involved in any way testing or patching or even reporting bugs, you get credits on the WordPress About page, which is pretty cool. Okay, we've got a few minutes left. I will go through the next few sections pretty quickly. I want to talk about usability testing in WordPress. There is an outreach program going on. It's fairly new. I think it started, 2020. The outreach program started as an experiment project. It was kind of like hallway hangouts, conversations about the new full site editor, kind of testing in real time, like different features, trying to help guide where the project would be going. That was really cool. And it has graduated from an experimental project to an actual outreach channel on Slack. Non-contributors and contributors come together here and discuss upcoming features. It's kind of like pre-release, you can be the guinea pig and get involved and have discussions with where features might be going in the future. I think that's a fun way to get involved as a testing. We also have accessibility testing. 1 in 4 people in the US has some sort of disability. That means they may need to use a computer different than a typical user, whether it's sight issues, colorblind issues. There are lots of different ways. WordPress uses tests against the Web Content Accessibility Guideline, WCAG 2.1, AA standard. There are tools that you can test the WordPress admin screens to make sure that they are accessible. And keep in mind, the accessibility goals are making sure that projects are perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust for all users. Let's design for every variation of human as well as server and setup. Things like keyboard navigation and color contrast. Let's see, there's a really cool browser add-on that you can put in Chrome or Firefox that lets you scan any web page you're on, and it will give you an accessibility score. That's been a good tool. I think there is a lot of work that we could do with WordPress still to make it more accessible to other users. Get involved with accessibility. There is a big live stream Accessibility Day conference coming up mid-October. It's a free live stream, 24-hour event. There will be lots of talks, lots of discussions. There are Trac tickets that have focus on accessibility, and even Gutenberg tickets that focus on accessibility. So if you want to get involved with making the project more accessible, that's a great way to go. There's even accessibility specific bug scrub meetings and other Slack meetings you can get involved with. And then the last part is automated testing. This does favor programmers, developers that want to get involved, but there are lots of ways we can have computers test WordPress for us. There are a couple of main ways of automated tests. They're called, we call them unit tests, which test specific pieces, isolated source code. Like if you have a PHP class, it will test each method of the class and make sure that it, when you send it data, that it returns data that you would expect. And then there are end-to-end tests, which simulate kind of like a full environment where a user will log in and make a blog post or add a widget to their sidebar, things like that. Those are end-to-end tests, or E2E to be short. I won't get into the code for this, we're running short on time, but you can run PHP unit tests. They're unit tests for PHP and JavaScript. So this is the unit tests. When you run them on your machine, all these dots you see across the screen are different tests that get run. There are 26,000 unit tests in WordPress right now. On my machine, it took about 6 minutes to run. Mileage may vary depending on your machine, but I think that's pretty impressive. There are a lot of PHP unit tests because I think WordPress, excuse me, is traditionally more PHP based. This is an example of a WordPress PHP unit test, but we also have JavaScript unit tests. It uses software called QUnit, and you can also pull these up and view them in your browser. There are 213 JavaScript unit tests, which doesn't sound like very many when you put it next to 26,000, but we're getting there. It's a good opportunity. Someone can get in, write some more JavaScript unit tests. This is what one would look like. This is the one for the password strength meter on the login page, just to make sure that that functions as expected. And then we have the end-to-end tests, which are written using a tool called Playwright. These are JavaScript-based library. You can run them locally on your machine. You have to first install npm to get your dependencies, and then start your environment and run test:(E2E) or end-to-end. And I'll point out too that Gutenberg also has its own Playwright tests. You can see here, this is me running the end-to-end tests in core right now, which there are 25. It's not very many, but it's better than 0. So there's an opportunity here. Get involved, write some end-to-end tests for core. Core has 25. I think in this, when I ran it, one of them failed. I didn't have time to check it out, but I think it's because I had different things in my database than it expected. But Gutenberg, I know, has about 1,600 end-to-end tests, because they've got tests for every block and everything in the block library and in the site editor, but there's also room for improvement there. And these run for each release just to make sure that everything is all put together. Here's an example of what some of that code looks like. And one thing I really like with end-to-end tests is you can actually watch them run. If you run that same command with the UI flag added, it will actually open up an actual browser and show you, you'll see the automation going, whatever the mouse and the clicks are supposed to be doing, you'll see them happening, and it verifies what it's seeing. All right, so to recap, lots of different opportunities to get involved and start testing in WordPress. We can test a release, we can join a release party, we can test individual tickets, and that's pretty easy now with Playground integration. You don't have to install anything locally, you don't have to run any commands locally, you just click links. So if you can use the internet, you can test WordPress. There are, the outreach program for usability testing, accessibility tests, and automated tests. So overall, WordPress wants you to contribute by testing. Thank you. We have 1 minute if someone has a quick question, or I'll be available afterwards if anyone wants to talk. But yeah, I get excited about testing. I think it's important. Yeah, that's it.